Morning. I'm Debbie,
Christina here,
and we are the Title Rebels.
the Title Rebels. Happy to be back. I,
Where did we go?
you're right. I don't know. I've been a little all over the place this morning. Maybe it's the fog. Maybe I'm foggy. I actually meant to say, we got some merch. I feel like
did.
we're real now.
We are.
Yeah. Well, once my hair's out of the way, I want to give a shout out to Wingman on the merch. I think it's critical that we promote the Title Rebels and all the wonderful things that Title presents itself each day that nobody ever thinks
before
of.
we go down the rabbit hole here, we're going to get started today with, we were just discussing that there's so much education out there for the buyers when they want to buy a home.
Correct.
What we're finding a lot is it's actually the sellers who need some education and to know exactly what's involved. Especially you have people, you have a lot of kids that their parents are in the home. So, and they don't realize what's involved in that. They just figured because their parents own the home, they have the right to sell the house.
I think it's becoming more of a day-to-day issue with the lack of inventory, how creative people are needing to get when they want to attract somebody to sell their house. I would say out of the files in which we receive, 35 to 40% of them have to be from estates.
Yes.
All right. So, it's the chuckle sometimes as to, are they deceased? How many deceased people would we be working with on this particular transaction?
Right. And what we're talking about is you have a husband and wife in title. They're both deceased. Now the kids are left by themselves. The kids don't realize what's involved with how they have to probate. If there is a will, a lot of times there isn't a will. And then they won't even be able to find anything to provide any proof of death or anything.
I think that originates with challenging conversations. I think that, at the stage of our lives, certainly don't want to have to think about that time when we're no longer here.
No.
But it is important and far easier of a process if your parents or, family in which plan to leave you, with their estate, actually go forth and put plans in place. It's incredible how many people do not have a will. Even if it's the most basic of items or you feel that you don't have a substantial amount of assets, it is critical, especially to know. I hear you guys chuckle from time to time when you are reading a will and say Johnny is saying that he's entitled to something. And what's the line that you guys normally see?
It will be like a sibling, and it will say, we leave this child this, and we leave, and nothing. We will not be leaving anything to Johnny, and he knows why.
I love that, because then at that point, it's really difficult for anybody to go ahead and say they're going to contest that.
Right.
One of the other big things are judgments.
Judgment. Yes.
We don't want to use that word as a scare tactic, right? I mean, over the years, I've had a judgment. I think everybody's probably had a judgment from that $10 or $15 copay that you never, paid or you kind of forgot about. And a lot of times we're hearing and seeing substantial judgments with very large balances that some people say that they don't know about, right? It's kind of like it's the unspoken thing, and then the bear gets poked, and now all of a sudden, this is something that has to be paid at closing. If you, or anyone for that matter, is planning to sell a house and might fear that they have some skeletons in their closet, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. But it's important that you act on that, because some of them can take quite a bit of time to actually clear.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we certainly don't want to, we're finding that a lot of closings are being delayed because of how many instances, bankruptcies, coming across a lot of bankruptcies right now. It's all about where the economy is. And unfortunately, there are very many that are in financial hardships. We actually have 2 or 3 files right now that are being held up because we're waiting court orders to approve the sale. And it is, the sellers are floored in some way. And that's okay. They can be. But it's all about the necessary preparation. So it starts with the will. Would you say that that's a really good place to start for somebody who's seeing it from an examination standpoint?
If they have a will, that is the most helpful part to start looking for, to see exactly, how many errors there are. I mean, if somebody doesn't have a will, and this is why it's very important to get title insurance, is because you don't know how many errors are out there. So you never know when that day is going to come where somebody comes knocking on your door saying, well, this was my parents' house and I still have rights to it.
And we've seen it.
I have 2 at the office right now where from 2006, in a will, it was legally devised for the husband and the son to both get it. But the husband signed off, not as the executor, just as an individual, and the son never signed off. This was just transferred again in 2024. But right now, the son still has interest in that property.
Well, I think it also boils down to seeing how you have taken title, right? We got a call yesterday on a gentleman who is, in his 80s, wants to start putting and getting his affairs in order. And the one of the key things he wanted to do was have his deed pulled to actually identify, because he's in title with his mom and he wants to leave everything to his daughter. So tough conversations to have.
Right.
But if you want to make it where it is a somewhat simple, painless process.
It's called putting your affairs in order. And this is a big part of it, because eventually down the line that house will be sold, or eventually down the line that house will be left to your kids. You have to, this is part of putting your affairs in order.
That binder that I sometimes see it on like my TikTok, or social media, and it's that binder that has, you could put your marriage license, your birth certificates, your social security number, and they say, in a case of, unfortunately, what transpired in natural disasters, grab that binder, and then that's a good portion of everything you have. Really kind of vibing. Yes. Really kind of vibing that that's really something that I think I should get. Especially because I've got stuff in envelopes, I've got stuff in this drawer, I've got stuff in this drawer.
Well, by organized.
Well, organization is not always the key to success.
You can buy it, but you got to remember to put the stuff in it.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
Well, maybe a rainy day project. I might want to go and just hunt down for that birth certificate, hunt down for that social security card.
I was just saying this morning during COVID, I'm going to get that closet cleaned out.
Yes, but as we go through more and more natural disasters that are becoming, unfortunately, more common.
You have to have everything together.
Are happening in areas of the country that may never have experienced such a catastrophe. Makes you really want to, be a bit more perked as to what can transpire. And knowing, I've looked at my kids' social security cards today for the first time, probably since they were sent or shortly after they were born. And now I want to snap pictures of all of them and put them in the cloud, because it's the only thing that I could possibly think of. And then I'm like, I don't really want to have my
hacked.
Yeah, and then
and your
I'm fucked.
Kids have judgments.
And then I'm fucked.
At 12.
Could you imagine somebody stealing? Oh dear God, no, please! Somebody stealing their social security number. I'm going to take that from the internet. That's actually another thing too. People don't understand when it comes to title. We do need some of your most sensitive information in order to clear those particular items.
Well, you need at least the last 4 digits of the social security number.
And the date of birth. And it was actually only very recently that a gentleman was extremely hesitant on not giving us that information, because he had an identity theft issue. Now, when that happens, we cannot come in as the title heroes and say, we got you this payoff, and this payoff. He actually was a extremely cooperative seller, and he went and he received with our instruction where to go and actually obtain these. But it's important that when somebody's calling you and you're selling a house or you're buying a house and they're calling from the title company and they need this information, it is a critical piece to the process.
It is.
And by engaging others in the transaction, your attorney, your realtor, to know the validity of who we are and that it is truly just to assist in getting a home sold, it helps tremendously. I can't tell you how many times it holds us up. And then all of a sudden we say, well, we've been reaching out to Mr. Smith, but Mr. Smith, refuses to give us the information. Almost every deal right now has some form of utility lien, tax lien, judgment, mortgages that they took out years and years and years ago that they don't even remember or know about. Mm-hmm. It's very scary. It really, really is. I tend to find that we actually find that a lot with reverse mortgages, right? Because you don't pay on those until until the home at that point or you're deceased.
You're deceased.
Right?
Yes.
So we do come across a few of those that have actually unfortunately killed deals.
They do.
So this episode, and of course our others, bring on quite a bit of laughter, fun, loose, discussing, the crazy things that we deal with. But it is important because this is something that we're dealing with every single day.
And there's more and more files that are coming over without seller attorneys. So the more educated the sellers are, the smoother a transaction will go for the seller as well.
Well, I think so. I actually think that if you know that you're running into a possible issue, okay, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. We have been there. Okay, we know it. We have had the fortune of helping so many get out of that financial distress, getting their homes and so forth behind them.
Give them a new start.
And giving them a new start. So, being a bit more vocal, and possibly wanting to contract an attorney who might give you the necessary guidance, because again, where we are as a nation and from an economic standpoint, a lot of these creditors are very open to negotiations of judgments.
They just want to they'd rather get paid than
something than nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah. But it's really important. We want you to use title as a resource. I think everybody jumps to the agent, right? We want to sell the house. We want to make it look pretty. What do we do to do that? But then we get, the halt of, wait, we've now got a problem. And in a lot of instances, sometimes the raised eyebrows come to title, almost as if, no, that can't be. This cannot be them. Well, I'm sorry that they might have portrayed that nothing was of an issue, right? So I think it's important as a listing agent, as an attorney, to immediately want to start asking some more pressing questions that might be a little bit uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Because it's going to be exposed anyway.
Yeah, it is. I could see where...
Well, I mean, exposed as, we're going to find it. It's going to, because, everybody,
we're going to detective that
when
shit.
I go into it, everybody's guilty until proven innocent.
Very true. Very true.
Because we
need a magnifying glass. And actually, sometimes you really do need a magnifying glass.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. When you have to read, and make out words, the feathered pen. Yeah. Lots of things go into what we do. And that's why it's a critical component to the transaction. Many do not know what we do, and we'll continue to say that over and over and over again. Why do I need you? Why do we need this? One of our most loyal attorneys gave us a great way to discuss title insurance, and it's a Carfax report for your house. And I think that's a really good way to have people tend to understand it a bit better. The air thing is kind of crazy though, and it's scary. It puts a lot of pressure on us to ensure that we have all the necessary documentation to the best of our ability from that individual. And we're hopeful that they are being truthful, because there's only so far that we can go. Now, say for sake of argument, they don't have a will. We don't have a will. We don't have anything. You have a death certificate. Where do you instruct the people to go? What's the first step?
Well, they would still have to file to become the administrator of the estate.
Correct. So then that's where they're headed. They're headed to Trenton. They're going to the probate office.
And they, right then and there, are supposed to be listing all their heirs. Just because you don't speak to a brother or a sister doesn't mean they're not an heir. So you still have to list them. They have to, list all the heirs, and then we would have to make sure that they all are aware of that this property is being sold, and they need to sign off.
Yeah. Well, it's then sometimes I don't know where that person is. Well,
Oh, we get that a lot.
the ex-husband, the ex-wife, the boyfriend, the girlfriend, we don't know where they
But
are.
meanwhile, they probably have them in the trunk of their car, and then, and then when we say, well,
They're 6
this
feet
can't,
under.
this can't go, we're not going to close this, and you're not going to get the money until we
All of
find
a
them.
sudden-
All of a sudden, they appear.
They have appeared. They have
Never will forget
detective
that.
styled that person and have drugged them into signing documents.
Well, we've had a situation like that.
Which one?
I'm not going to mention names,
Of course.
but where we needed the brother to sign off,
Oh, yes.
right? But, so
We needed the brother to sign off where he has not spoken to his brother and or his deceased father, of course, when he was alive. And I'll never forget, our contact actually drove up there and banged on it, knocked
not
hard, I'm sure, on his door.
not aggressively.
And aggressively asked him to sign a piece of paper.
Yes.
And it thankfully was his wife, I think, who really got to him on saying, no matter what issues you've had with your brother or your father, you understand the financial distress that your brother is under because of this.
And because mean that he's an heir, and he never, renounced or
He
signed
never
off.
renounced, no.
Once he heard that it would, still fall back on him, and he would still be obligated.
He wanted nothing to do with it.
He never picked up a pen so quick in
To
his
think
life.
that a foreclosed mortgage on an estate would pose an issue. The moment he heard that was it. That paper was signed, that document was notarized, and he was cooperating, and it worked out beautifully.
Yes.
The brother was able to start his life over in Florida, dealing, and the estate was behind him. He was leaving New Jersey. His wife had died suddenly. He really just needed to start a new life down there. And that's what we work, again, very, very hard for. Sometimes we have to make extremely challenging phone calls. We have to immediately address ourselves so that they don't think that we're a telemarketer, but at the same time get everything we need to say in like 15 to 30 seconds and hope that they don't hang up the phone.
We do go above and beyond of.
We have to.
It's the only way.
I mean, it's
It
the
is
only
the
way.
only way.
Especially too right now, again, with all the bankruptcies. I'm trying to clear a file right now. And because we're in this limbo period of bankruptcy and foreclosure, it's so hard to obtain a payoff for this gentleman. And he is one of the sweetest guys. All he wants to do is put this behind him. And I can't. They won't produce documents at that point until they're seeing a court dismissal or a bankruptcy dismissal, online. Mm-hmm. And it's preventing a newly, wed couple, first house. We were actually supposed to close it today. Likely we won't close for another 2 to 3 weeks, and that's a minimum. Right. At this point, we just don't know. So the moral of this episode is the criticality of having those difficult conversations with your parents, having a living will. Okay, you think, oh, I'm 30, I'm 40, I have, all the time in the world to do these things. I don't have very much in assets. Okay, but when you leave this earth, there is something there, whether it's going back to your parents, if you leave it at that time, it's going to a sibling, it's going to your own children. And the misconception that wills are very expensive is just that. It is a misconception. You can get a very advanced will done for a few $100s, or if you don't have very much, go to the LegalZoom. Do something online to at least get something down on paper. It will really save tremendous headaches, once the time comes. Things get held up in probate. The person is not appointed to yet sell the home on behalf of the estate. So you get a little bit of a snowball effect when you think, oh, yay, great, we have a house. The market has no inventory. This is going to sell really quickly. Oh, my goodness, money in hand. And then, boom, just like that, right? I came in like a wrecking ball. I can't actually believe that we used one episode to actually talk about title. And unlike, the dumpster fires that we might have started.
All the falls we just talked about were dumpster fires. We just needed to.
We love all the files. We love all the files.
It's
Some
a lot
of them,
to address with the sellers. It's not just all about the buyers. I got to keep you on track.
Immediately, I'm like, oh my goodness, do we have seller contact information? We must alert them. Problem. We're dealing with a fraudulent mortgage right now. That's actually pretty
Scary.
I think scary is a good word. And in this case, if this seller who had a slight inclination that a business partner might have done something in the past, if he would have spoken up a little bit about that, he would have an extra $200,000. But unfortunately, we have a fraudulent mortgage from a business partner who, can very well tell that it was not his signature, no identification provided, all of these variables. And he sold a home and we're holding over 50% of the proceeds until this litigation is worked out. So nobody really understands the repercussions of items that are not cleaned up or addressed. So if you feel that you have anything that you want to know, give a title company a call, give us a call. Or run down the property for you. Actually, I won't run down the property. Well, maybe.
No.
Maybe it depends.
Stay in your lane.
So Debbie and Brenda and the brains will come together and they'll run that down. We'll do a judgment search. Only costs a couple bucks. Most times, we're using our resources online where a dime won't even be spent. And then you're able to truly know what you have to work on. Because you, as the actual individual, are going to get a payoff a lot quicker, are going to be able to address a negotiated payoff, are going to be able to do so many more things than what we will be able to do on your behalf. And then that obviously helps speed up the process. Judgments. I was waiting on a judgment for 3 weeks. Yesterday, I said, I finally waved the white flag. And I said, Mr. Seller, I need your help. Within an hour, he had a written payoff from this particular creditor. I couldn't believe it. Took me 3 weeks to even get anywhere before I said, you know what, at this point, you've entrusted us, and this is all of the information I have. This is where you need to call. And then boom. They were able to do it. Now we're one step closer. Now we just need the court to grant that he can sell the home. So once we get that little bit of technicality there, that the judge says, yes, we can sell the home, you can sell the home, and X, Y, and Z creditor gets paid, any bit of money that you thought you were going to see, likely you will not.
No. But he will sell the home.
But he will sell the home, and he will begin this new portion of his life. So
the bottom line, you're selling.
Get your shit together. Get it together.
Anyway, bottom line, you want to sell your home. It's great to fix up the house, to make extra bucks, make more money when you're selling your house. But make sure that you know everything that is going to be on title to help it be a smoother transaction for you.
Well said. Well said, Deborah. Well said. On that note, I'm Christina,
I'm Debbie,
and we're the Title Queens. Oh, the Title,
Title
Rebels.
Rebels.
Until next time, I'm going to try
Peace.
something new. Peace.